Hi, everyone. It is yet another episode, and we are definitely excited for our next guests. And boy, what a story they have trying to open up a business in the middle of a pandemic. I don't know anything tougher than that. So at least in our little lives, I'm sure there's a lot of tough things. But anyway, I'm very excited to speak with them. And before we get started, Jennifer, let's talk a little bit about what's been going on. How's everything going on in your neck of the woods?
My neck of the woods. Well, first of all, I just want to say it's episode 8, so it's my lucky number. So maybe I need to buy a lotto ticket today.
Yes.
So you should that right. But the thing going on, I've had a few conversations, more pick up with people here and there. Nothing new, but it's conversations, so they're happening. Trying to make the most of my time, spending time with my kids during this time. I went camping in the rain.
I actually went on an interview recently, and it was a really interesting process. I'm still waiting on an update from them. So fingers crossed something will take place and I can talk about it. I don't want to do that yet. And this company is actually a pretty big company, and they use a very different approach on interviewing. They have these leadership principles, and the questions they ask, you're supposed to answer it in a very specific way, which kind of outlines, what the issue was, the goal, and how you implemented that, and what the result was. So it was a really neat experience.
So let me ask you, did you use Satish's tips on outline your talking points for the conversation?
Yeah, I did. So Satish had in our previous episodes, number 6, gave some really great tips on, what to do to get noticed, and tips on your resume and whatnot. And yes, I did. I actually did create a script, and there were all these different leadership principles. So I put examples for each one of them, and then so I did. But, they might find someone more experienced than me, so who knows?
You never know, but at least you went in with a good little script of talking points, since that was one of mine. Well, let me give you a little brief update about who we're about to meet. So in all disclosure, Jason Bray and Amy Bray, that Amy is my sister-in-law and Jason is her husband. And so they own a food truck in Denver that they'll talk about, called J Street Food. What really struck me, why we should invite them on, not just because they're related to me, but because Amy called us back in March. I won't forget where I was sitting in a bar when you could still go to bars with people. But it was kind of the beginning of this whole notion of things were going to probably shut down. We weren't really sure. And I was sitting there with my husband and one of my good friends, and she calls and she's in tears because as a small business owner, and they've worked really hard to get their food truck up, because if anyone who's worked in the food services business, if you make it past 2 or 3 years, that's a big deal. And she was in tears, didn't know, what were they going to do? How were they going to keep staff, and how are they going to go through this whole thing? And I think they have a really great story about how they persevered through that and pivoted their business. They're going to talk about that with us, to talk with them and discuss all of the neat things they've been able to do and make it through this time. So I think it hopefully be inspirational to everyone out there.
Yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and speak with Amy and Jason.
All right, so here are our guests, Amy and Jason Bray. So thank you guys so much for being here. I did disclose to all of our viewers earlier that I'm your sister-in-law, so they know. I said that you've got a really cool story, and it's not just because I love you because you're family, that we invited here today. So thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for
Good to
having
be
us.
here.
So tell us a little bit. We're going to start a little bit. You guys introduce yourself. We just told them basically that you guys have a food truck.
Okay, so my name is Jason Bray, and this is my wife, Amy Crowfoot. We own J Street and then Hoon J. The best way to remember it is J and J Street, Hoon J, which is Asian-inspired smokehouse.
So tell them about those who haven't had J Street before too. So you guys are in Denver, and the way your food truck works is Tell them what it's all about.
Yeah. So we changed the menu, and this is also, keep in mind, a little bit pre-COVID. Since COVID, we kind of stuck with the same menu, but normally we'll change the menu every 4 to 6 weeks. We just kind of pick a total new concept. It's global and seasonally inspired street food. So we'll pick a concept and stick with that. But then when the menu changes, it's not like we have sandwiches and then we just change a couple sandwiches. Like we go from Irish pub menu to Asian to, taco, all kinds of different stuff, endless opportunities. So
do you just put it in a hat and just pick one, or is there a sort of a process that you go through or demand?
There's definitely a process. I try to think about new menu concepts like December for the next year.
Jason actually obsesses pretty much all year about things he wants to do and jots them down in his phone. And then in December, he becomes like intensely obsessive about researching all the things and the dishes he would do. And so usually we have a list of like, I don't know, up to 20 menu ideas, like, regions or seasonal menus. And then Jason's the like cloud that floats along, and then I'm the one that holds the like tether as we go along. So then I rein him back in and we edit it down to like 9 or 10 menus, and then he goes to work like deciding what dishes will be on there. So usually by the first of the year, we know what month we're doing what menus, and then as we get closer to those, he really refines the dishes and the menu descriptions. And then usually it's like the night before the menu rolls out that I get the menu descriptions to make the menus, but that's kind of how that works.
The night before, of course, that's how it goes, right? Creative minds.
How many years has it been now that J Street's been around?
We're in
4.5 years.
It's our 5th summer, yeah.
Wow. It's hard to believe it's been that long already.
Yeah.
So I laugh, I have to say too, they talk about Jason and all his ideas. Jigna, so every year at Christmas on his wish list on Amazon, there's like all these cookbooks. And I call Amy and I'm like, do you really want these cookbooks? She's like, yeah, he really does, because they inspire him for other ideas and stuff. So I'm like, okay. But then I'm like, they're going to have to build a room just for cookbooks.
Yep.
That's the guest room downstairs. Like, Mom she's living with us right now to take care of Lincoln, but there's like no room down there because it's full of bookshelf and books just piled. So, yeah.
You have a cookbook library. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's right.
Absolutely. They're good forever and ever.
Absolutely. So who is each one, Amy and Jason, who are your favorite chefs, or if you had to pick one?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed definitely over the times. I used to love, Thomas Keller, and he's got a bunch of amazing cookbooks. They're definitely well vetted, and that's the difference between like a good book and a not so good one is, every recipe is tested in a good cookbook. Like all the stuff that Thomas Keller put out years ago, like Bouchon or Sous Vide or any of those books. And then, it changes though, because just as, you change kind of what kind of style of food you like to do, you kind of change. David Chang is awesome. He's got a lot of good stuff out there. It just changes.
My favorite chef has always been Rick Bayless, because I remember watching, like, I think it was PBS that he was on. Like, he was like a TV chef before TV chefs were a thing, And the one year that Jason worked at Aspen Food and Wine, he was there. I never got to meet him, but Jason did and got an autographed cookbook for me there. But modern day, like, I really like David Chang. He kind of, I don't know, I just think he's like pretty cool. And then I think we both also like Roy Choi, just because he's kind of the grandfather of the modern food truck movement. And Jason actually got to work with Roy Choi at Aspen Food and Wine. So that was like not long before Chef came out. And so then it was cool that he was like
it was still
the
like
chef behind the
couple years
scenes
before.
on
So-
Chef. And so
Speaking of like the chefs on TV, Jason, now you had the honor to be on TV twice now, correct?
Yeah. Food Truck Fan Fight, and then Food Truck Nation.
Food Truck Nation, yes. Yeah, okay. And Food Truck Nation, I remember watching that about this time last summer.
The premise of it is they have a chef as the host, and so he knows about food. I mean, he's a current working chef that owns a restaurant, And
he was like a runner-up on
yeah, he's cool.
Hell's Kitchen, I think.
He was
That's
super,
kind of how he rose.
super cool. And then you kind of focus. At that time, they were doing Hoonjay, my Hoonjay truck, which was new at the time because we opened up that last St. Patrick's Day. But you would pick 2 like featured items on your menu, and they kind of dug in deep on how you prepare it and the inspiration that you get behind it. It was just a good structure of the show.
Very cool. And then you've been debuted a couple times on the local news channel, I believe, as well. Cooking, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
so he's done a few local TV spots, and then there's a like nationally syndicated show, but it's filmed here in Denver called Daily Blast Live. It's on the Jigna news networks. And so he was kind of, when they stopped doing cooking segments, but when they were doing cooking segments, he was kind of the resident chef that when they,
And
So-
now you're on LaidOffLife. Just want to make sure Jigna, you understand
Right,
that.
yeah,
Like, we've got them all big time now because they're on hashtag LaidOffLife with Jennifer and Jigna. Just how
we'll be sure to add that to our as seen on section of the
Exactly,
website for sure.
exactly.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jigna.
Is it a requirement if I want to open up a restaurant or a food truck that I have crazy colored hair? Or is that like, what do I need to do?
We had that
This
before.
right here is the benefits of owning your own business.
That's the
For years I wanted colored hair and I couldn't because I was sitting in an office behind a desk or teaching but as soon as we had our own business, then I could have crazy colored hair. And I've had all of them.
Jigna, she
Love
also has an Emmy, just by the way.
I do
Oh,
have an Emmy
tell us
as
about
well.
your Emmy.
It is a local, it's called a regional Emmy, but I worked for a local news station here, 9 News, and did research for a reoccurring segment on the news. We truth tested political ads, and so we did the research and rated them as true or false, or
Can you please
in
go
the
back
middle.
to that now immediately?
I'm
I
so
think we
glad
need you now more than ever.
I'm so glad I did it a while ago because I could not. I would be so angry doing it now.
So here's the thing. So, right, you guys have been really successful, and 5 years going up in the food business is a big deal. And I'm going to take you all back though to this moment in March. I was telling Jigna about it earlier. I was sitting in a bar, when you can still do that, with some friends, because you can't do that in Texas right now. So I know in Colorado, I think you guys can sit in the
No bar.
outdoors.
Well, I guess bars not after 10
Outdoors.
o'clock. Outdoors,
Okay.
yeah, for the
Yeah,
most part.
we can't even do that right now. So I get this phone call. We get this phone call from Amy, and she's in tears because as the pandemic started, you're thinking all this stuff you guys have been working toward, your business is falling apart. Take me to that moment. What's going through y'all's head? What's going on?
Well, so you should know the backstory that prior to that moment, I had spent, I don't know, probably 40 hours doing business projections, and this was going to be our year. We finally everything was on autopilot. We were really going to expand our catering. We were cold calling businesses here to do corporate drop-off catering. We were going to grow that. This was going to be our year to finally make money. So I'd spent 40 hours just running numbers, but then countless hours, cold calling and coming up with business plan and all of that. And so then this happened, and it put a halt to that pretty quickly. So yeah, no, I mean, I cried for, I think 36 hours straight, probably, thinking when we opened our truck, the seed money that we used is our house. So thinking we're gonna lose our house, we're gonna lose literally everything that we've worked for. So yeah, it was depressing and awful, and then we just had to kind of pivot toward we don't really want to move in with my mom and dad particularly, so we just had to start coming up with some ideas. And so I don't know, I just started brainstorming in my head and came up with some ideas and bounced them off Jason and my mom, and came up with something that was certainly wasn't a money maker, but it at least paid the bills to get us through quarantine when no one, like there was no like dine in at all. And people didn't even want to leave their house to do takeout. So doing the family meals was a great idea. So we decided to package up meals for 4 to 6 and charge a ridiculously low price for it. Our labor was free, and it was really designed just to pay for the food and our bills. And honestly, like, didn't even probably pay for the food. We were putting that on credit cards, knowing that then we could go back and hopefully make that up another time and get that paid back. But just at least pay our rent and the mortgage on our truck was what we were looking for. So,
like, if I were to wanting to open up my business, how do I even get a loan? I don't even know how to do that.
So when J Street started, we talked about getting a small business loan from the SBA. And my parents own a good chunk. They're investors with us, as they've helped us out through along the way, like getting loans and stuff. So knowing that my dad was a veteran, we would be prioritized with the SBA loan. And so we started down that path, and it just became working with the SBA is not a quick thing. It became abundantly clear that that maybe wasn't the way to go. And
Especially restaurants.
So yeah, taking out like a home equity loan instead of an SBA loan was the path that we chose. Now that means an SBA loan is backed by the SBA, so if it fails, you're not on the hook for the whole thing. Whereas if you take out a home loan, like if your business fails, you're just fucked, because there's, it's your home that's backing it up. So it is a giant leap of faith. Jason and I also both quit our full-time jobs. Like, we just kind of dove into it head first, put the house up, quit our jobs. We did budget in about 6 months worth of our salaries to the front end, which, I mean, typically for a business, that's not enough. It's probably closer to 2 years before you can pay yourself. But with the food truck, based on some market research we had done and talking with other trucks, it seemed like we could turn a profit a little bit sooner. So buffering that 6 months of pay in certainly helped. Yeah, I mean, we literally put everything we had on the line to get it going. So it was never a matter of if it was going to work. It like absolutely had to work.
Had to work. Yeah. So that's like, I think something kind of people have to go with a mindset right now, like those people who are laid off, and if they're looking either trying to figure out how do I start my own business, or if I'm going to get a job again, you can't keep the if. You got to figure what it is you're going to commit to and get it done and get out there and work towards that. And I think, that's a good reminder, because on top of that loan that you had there, but you also were able in this situation, able to go through the process of one of the small business loans for the through the stimulus package, right? What do they call those?
PPP loan.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the PPP loan went live on a Friday at 11, and I had our application in Friday at noon. Like, we were first in line. I knew that we couldn't go with a big bank because they were going to be super backed up. So we got an email from, I can't even remember, some small company that was processing PPP loans, like, because they didn't have much to do either. So they had pivoted in what they were doing. So I got an email from them, and I got our application in. They followed up Saturday at noon and pushed our loan through. And then when the first round of those PPP loans closed, we had not been included in those. And I was furious and frustrated, and because we were first in line. Like, I kept asking our loan person, like, how could we have not gotten it? We were first in line. And it became very apparent that, so they were just the processors, and then they pushed it out there for banks to pick up and fund, and the banks had picked up the really big loans to fund, because do you want to process 100 $300,000 loans, or do you want to process 1 or 10 $3 million loans? So they had picked up these big loans first. And just all of us that actually probably truly needed it more than those people that were applying for $3 million and $30 million loans, we all got passed over.
Yeah.
So, and then all that news started coming out about people getting, like, big companies getting millions of dollars. And then just before the second round of loans opened, we got an email that was like, just kidding, you got funded from the first round. And then I think the law said when it was written for those that they had to be funded within like 3 or 5 days of getting your SBA number. And we sat on our SBA number for probably 14 days before we saw the money. So it was a long waiting period, but we did finally get it, and it came through at a pretty good time that we had some business starting to come back to us, so we didn't have to just pay our employees because we had to use it up. We actually could pay them to make income for us, so that worked out.
Nice.
So I'm so glad
Correct.
you guys got the
Correct.
loan and you're able to keep going.
Jigna, I would tell you, I think it's because they were filling karma quotients. So, because we
Yes.
talked about that here, hashtag LaidOffLife. But so, tell them about what you did for the community in the meals. And
After we started doing the family meals, I was trying to figure out kind of what we could do to increase our sales. And I was looking at Nextdoor or Facebook or something, and it was a doctor talking about like stop making handmade masks and delivering them to the hospital because we can't use them. He said we could use like skull caps, or we could use food actually, because we're having a hard time getting food here. And so then it just clicked for me, and I was like, originally we thought that we were going to deliver these family meals to the hospital and allow people to purchase them, and then we would deliver them. Then we were informed that everything had to be individually packaged, which like makes a lot of sense now. But like when we were first going through the pandemic, we were naive. And but so yeah, we started allowing people to buy. I can't even remember. It was a certain number of meals for a flat rate.
Yep, it was.
I don't even remember. Maybe 4 meals for $30. And we were very fortunate that one of the local news channels here. I was running some sponsored ads on Facebook. And so one of the news channel here, one of the producers saw it and called me, and they did a little spiel on us about our family meals, but then also our donations. And I think we had like, I don't know, 100 donations come through in 48 hours or something. It was insane. Like we watched the news story and then my phone just started blowing up, and it was like, boop, 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 all these people. And so, but we did, basically the meals were covered the cost of food and a little bit of profit for us, and then all of our labor was free on that. So we were donating our labor, and then people were basically paying for the food so that we could do that. We delivered over 1,000 meals to healthcare workers here in the Denver area. So
It also though gave you the idea was one of her mom's friends wanted to like just give us $100, and we were like, we don't feel comfortable with that. So that was also kind of the idea, like, oh, you could purchase some hospital meals. Because that way we're not just, I don't want to take your $100. That way you could feed employees.
yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the crazy thing that you guys did is, Jason, can you tell us a little bit about, you guys opened up a restaurant during a pandemic?
Yeah, so it was a partnership that we joined with Spice Trade Brewing. One of the owners and head CEO, the head brewer, Jeff Tyler, had found us from my food truck. He had eaten off our truck a couple of times, and actually spoke to me back last summer at City Park Jazz. It's one of the events we do in the summer here. And just wanted to know if, we wanted to expand and go into brick and mortar, and conversations kind of went over for quite a while. And then we ended up collabing with him. Obviously, when all this was in the works, it was before we knew there was going to be a pandemic. But then it just, we had to start bringing in money somehow, because we spent all this money on the cost of, you know, uh, of building the place out and having to pay rent.
Well, and by the time we got our certificate of occupancy and stuff, we were slated to open April 1st. We came here maybe March 10th to talk to Jeff, and we were like, yeah, April 1st. And then like March 14th happened and shut like everything down.
Right.
So
Yeah, so obviously wheels were in motion because it takes a while to get stuff actually open. So wheels were way in motion before the COVID happened, and then exactly like Amy said, it was shooting to open in April, and then March 14th or whatever it was is
that an April Fool's joke on y'all?
Yeah,
I
no kidding. And then at that point, it was like, so we started with takeout only.
because we weren't allowed to open.
Right, you weren't allowed to.
And
so
then, and in Denver and Colorado, could you take out, like, buy beer and take it to go, like we can in Texas?
Yeah.
Well, so they were allowing actual regular restaurants to sell their beer that way, which that's normally not the rules of the liquor laws in Colorado, but they were granting them this rule to try to keep small businesses.
Oh, that's true, because it's
afloat.
actually a brewery, so you were already.
But we could. Right.
Makes
Right.
sense. But but here you have to buy food to go with it. But I guess you wouldn't have had that situation being a brewery.
No, so when they first opened the tap room, like opened the doors here, they were just selling like 6-packs to go because we can some beer here, and then we added the food component, but we never had to sell food to sell beer. Now we serve alcohol here now. And people can get alcohol to go, but they do have to purchase the food to get the alcohol. But we're a brew pub and like have a liquor license, and so we kind of enjoy the benefits of both of those.
And in the beginning, because we also had a bunch of our beer canned, in the beginning the to-go beer was just easy because we had 6-packs and 4-pack, tall boys of different stuff. And then, we did the beer sales first, and then we had a super small, limited, takeout menu just to try to see how it went, and it went pretty good. But then on the flip side, it went really quick because Governor Polis on Tuesday, I don't know the exact date, this was back in
We did takeout for 2
May.
weeks.
Tuesday, he told all the restaurants Wednesday they can open. And obviously, with us never being open for normal service, we didn't have the staff. We weren't going to hire when we had to do, when we knew we were opening for takeout only, we had nobody. It was just, me, it wasn't that many people. And then it just went from 0 to 60 real quick. Because it was like, okay, now we have to hire the rest of the kitchen staff and all the servers. And the other thing that was kind of different and unique, originally our concept here was supposed to be more casual. So the inside of the place kind of looks like a Southeast Asian market, and there's like a window, and they were going to go order from the window, kind of like a food stall in Southeast Asia. And it's real similar with like our food trucks. There was going to be cocktail servers and beer servers, but people would order food and get like a number or a pager and come up and get it. But
cocktails from the bar.
Because of COVID, you have to have a server. It made us be full service, but I think that was a blessing in disguise because the neighborhood we're in, I don't think they would have liked it, and we wouldn't be as busy. But because we're full service,
that's awesome.
and we have servers to do everything, I mean we've been cranking.
All right,
so that must have been such a wild experience having to open up and pivot some more within a month of everything. It's mind-boggling. But as they say, you gotta go with the flow, and circumstance makes the best coincidences. I don't know. I think I just made that quote up. But so let's talk a little bit about the staff and the challenges you were having with.
So I think our biggest challenge was finding like the executive staff to lead the place. So finding our exec chef and our GM. The difficulty lied because when the feds gave the additional $600 in assistance to the unemployed, really wreaked havoc on the labor market. So, I mean, Jason and I are constantly hiring new people on the truck. So hiring and that kind of thing is not something that we're unfamiliar with. But the salary that we had to offer was not the highest. And I started doing some math. And if before the $600 and COVID, you were making about $30,000 a year, the $600 bumps you up to $45,000 a year. So why would you go back to like a $15 an hour job when you're making 50% more money sitting at home? The person that we ended up with for exec chef is great. Like he worked out really well, and we had probably a couple.
Is that because of the behavioral interviewing I did for you?
It must be, yeah.
Because it's so maybe people who are watching this, if you need a behavioral interviewer to hire, I can do that.
She can. She did a great job.
She did do that. We should have had her do that with our GM.
Should have.
Because our GM
Lasted a week.
lasted 2 weeks. Since then, I've taken over some of the GM stuff here as if I don't have enough to do. So I'm supposed to be part-time GM here, and it's been a full-time ride here for a while. But yeah, hiring was definitely a challenge.
So I saw you posted you're hiring again. And like the joke is always like right now, like since I'm looking for a job, like if we lived in Colorado, I'd be like, hey, maybe I'll come work for you. So it's too far of a commute right now, sorry. But the question is like now, so this $200 or this extra $600 gone, right?
Gone.
We're probably only going to get an extra $200. The thing is, though, I suspect now the labor market's going to get better and even more competitive. So I would tell people, even if the government does have some extra money given out there and you're thinking you're making more, I would think don't let that be like your hold on to that. Like you need to get out there and put your best foot forward, because I think it's going to get tougher now. People looking, like I would imagine you're going to have better candidates coming at you with this last post I just saw Amy put out for.
So I just posted a host position late last night to Indeed, and I've had almost 50 applicants in the last 18 hours. And I think that has a lot to do with that wearing off. And yeah, I mean, that's what I was hoping to get, some really good kind of server candidates in here mid-July that were smart enough to know like, hey, that's going to run out the end of July, and I want to be just ahead of the influx of people looking for jobs. So yeah, I mean, I would, even if you're making more money on unemployment, it's gonna wear off. It's gonna end at some point. So you better be out there and be ahead of the game.
The rude awakening, and it's a double-edged sword, because there was, a little bit harder, but on the same side of things, it was also, even back when we had to hire the kitchen staff here, there was still a little bit better of a pool, because there are still good people out there that don't want to take advantage of a system. There are people that just don't like sitting at home all the time. They want to be busy. So there was a good pool as far as, because you got to think of how many people and what markets are completely wiped out. Like my old industry, I came from the hotel world. That is gone now. So there's no executive chef of a hotel right now, because restaurants are closed. There's no one doing banquets. There's no weddings. So that whole segment, there's so many talented people out there in the culinary world. And like she says, it's only going to get, and it's a rude awakening for, there was this day and age of the millennials, call it 2 years ago, where they would just ghost interviews. You would set up 10 interviews, maybe one would show up, and then you hire that guy and he still wouldn't show up to his job, because he could go down the street and get another job. Because 2 years ago in Denver, in Colorado, every restaurant needed cooks. Everyone needed culinary staff, and they knew it. It was the employee market where they could go anywhere and they could take advantage of that. And I always said, like, dude, when I got out of culinary school, there was no jobs to go work at these nice restaurants. It was very hard to get in. You had to compete. You had to be the best of the best. And now we're going to kind of get into that. Now these young kids that used to think they could get a job anywhere, now you're going to have to scrap it out.
That's how quickly does the world turn, right? And it's sort of the seller's market versus the buyer's market versus the sellers. It just kind of keeps moving around and around. it takes a toll on everyone, not just the business owners, but the employee and the family members, right? Kind of talked a little bit about your business and the struggles, but how is business for you guys now? You have food trucks, you have a physical restaurant, there's a lot going on.
We're really fortunate, like the timing of all of this kind of worked out really well for us. If this was a normal summer and both of our trucks were going full bore, there is no possible way that we could have
Done this.
We couldn't have opened we would have been working like 120 hours a week to make it all work. So as weird as it sounds, we're like fortunate that COVID happened because we could hand our truck over to our employees and let them.
Just basically one truck is going out full time. Jay, the other one goes out once every other Sunday, which I'll take it out, which is this Sunday. But the other one is just kind of on cruise control.
So we have our employees. We have a couple that have been with us for several years, so they're able to really just like take over ownership of that. And so Jason's been able to pull back quite a bit with that. I think doing the takeout for the 3 weeks that we did from here really helped to like hype up the space. We're on the corner of two really busy streets, and the build out took, of course, everyone's like, build out's gonna take 9 months, and then like 3 years later you're like, we're finally open. But so the neighbors, we have residential to our east and south, and so all the neighbors like anxious, they're desperate for something like this in their neighborhood. And so they've been anxiously waiting and watching the build out. And so then we could do the takeout, and it was phenomenal food. And so then they were really excited for the space to open. And then just since we have opened, our patio has, we can only put 50 people inside. And then but outside between our patio.
Per COVID regulations.
For COVID regulations, yeah. So our occupancy here is 270 about. During non-pandemic times. So the state regulations here allow us to have 50 people inside, and then we have a nice patio here, and then our governor signed an executive order allowing the liquor licenses to expand into, he calls it al fresco dining.
Parking lot.
Which means in the parking lot. It's just a fancy name for eating in the middle of the street or in the parking lot.
But because we're a corner lot, it works out, and our patio kind of wraps around in that L shape anyway. We just use those parking spots that are the L shape on the corner lot, so it works out great.
And so that gives us, our total seating here now is about 180. So we're at close. 70% of capacity, and we're busy all the time. We could maybe on a few days we could be busier, but Fridays and Saturday nights our tables are full to their capacity from 5 to 9.
Now, do people have to make a reservation?
They don't have to, and that was a learning curve for me. We use Open Table for reservations, and I've never used Open Table before, so that was a little bit of a learning curve for me to not like pack us so much, but not to back off so much that we're not maximizing our space. So I finally have it at a good place where we have a good amount of reservations coming in, but still can accommodate walk-ups. And the neighbors are less and less using reservations, but still on a Friday or Saturday night, the reservations are full.
And I asked this so if people are listening and they're in the Denver area or whatever, because a question too, like here I know you sometimes if you have to make a reservation in Dallas, you have a limited time you can be at that table. So that's the other question I have for you. I'm curious.
Yes. So we limit for parties 4 or fewer. It's a 2-hour limit during the rush, and the most we can have at a table is 8. So that's another state regulation. That's not our rule.
That's more than ours. Ours is max is 6. So
yeah.
So if we had one more child, we couldn't go out to eat. So luckily,
well, someone would just have to stay back. Let's be honest. We're not going to not go to eat. So we're just going to draw straws and see who has to stay back. But yeah, so we allow them, because they are a little bit bigger party, 2.5 hours. So that helps us turn tables and really maximize the use of our space. Also, for anyone that's listening, here's an interesting tidbit for you. Open Table, if you go directly to a restaurant's website and click on their Open Table widget and book your table from there, it costs the restaurant nothing. If you go to Open Table and book it from there, it costs the restaurant $1, which doesn't sound like a whole lot. And Open Table's waiving those fees right now, but last month, if we had to pay those fees, it would have cost us almost $1,000. So
Good to know
if you
tip on
want
how to help out
Ooh,
business,
that's
right?
a great tip. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to help your restaurant, your local restaurant out, and just go to their website.
Yeah.
Small little things, just even with the hotels, is if you book through the hotel, you'll get a better room versus booking through that third party and whatnot. So,
exactly, yeah.
really interesting tip. So,
I just want to know what's Jason's favorite thing to cook right now at his favorite thing on the menu at Trade Spice, right? That's it, right?
Spice Trade.
Spice Trade. I want to switch it up. But, Spice Trade.
There's a lot of good stuff on the menu. Being summertime, though, and we will do a new menu revision in the fall, so this guy will go away. But we do a watermelon, so it's compressed watermelon, tomato, ahi poke salad. So we actually take the watermelon, and when you vacuum seal it, it actually looks and has the texture more like tuna than tuna does. So it's hard to tell the difference. So we have the watermelon, ahi tuna, heirloom cherry tomatoes. They get cut in half, and then the whole salad gets a little bit of what's called XO vinaigrette. It's this Asian soy sauce-based dressing with some cherry vinegar and some sugar and some other good stuff. And then it gets sprinkled with a little fleur de sel, which is a nice sea salt. And then it gets some pickled Fresno peppers and some microgreens. Definitely very fresh, and you wouldn't expect that much flavor to get packed in that salad. That XO vinaigrette has a lot of flavor. You can't really see it because it just kind of goes over the tuna and the watermelon, and it's a good combination.
I'm really
my mouth
hungry.
is watering right now. Please shut up. Stop.
So nice thing, you're in Colorado. You can sit outside, which is great because here in Texas right now, Jigna and I would look like that fly kind of coming down and look like it was like going to melt away. We look. So now flip it. It's Colorado. It's cold because that's why your brother moved away. and there's snow and ice and the holidays are coming and you guys I know did a lot of catering for businesses and events like that, and also people got to get indoors. What's going to go on with business then if we are not in a post-pandemic world, which I'd love to say we are, but let's pretend we're not. So what's business plan?
The next idea, and like food trucking sounds like a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work.
Well, just to say that, because I'll say, so their nephews, they worked on it. I think Will maybe lasted 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And Greg lasted a good couple hours, but he was beat after working for all that one day.
He did a lunch shift and then a little teeny part of a dinner shift with us, but legit, I think he was riding in the back of the truck to the next, because it was like a double, a lunch and then a dinner, and he fell while the truck's moving, he just put his head down and fell asleep on the counter.
It's hard. They told me
it's hard work. Yeah, they thought it was going to be like this easy money, and it Will literally lasted 5 minutes. 5 minutes. But so we're constantly pivoting and trying to figure out, this year was the year to move to catering because that's less work for more money, essentially. Like when you go out to these public events, and food truck life is not like Chef. So if you've seen Chef, forget everything you've seen, because that's not really how it works. You don't just go set up on account, the corner and tweet out that you're there and 50 gazillion people show up. We went to a local brewery a couple weekends ago, and they had shut down for in-house consumption because they had a COVID scare, and we sat for 5 hours and did $93. So that's rough to do those kind of things. So at least with catering, you know exactly how much time you're going to be there, exactly what you're going to make ahead of time. You're not wasting as much food, that kind of thing. But yeah, this winter, that's not gonna work because there is no catering really to be done. I think we're gonna see probably more shutdowns or just people less willing to go out this winter because there's not outdoor space. Like so many of our customers here at Spice Trade are here because they're comfortable being here. Their table's like 8 feet away from the next table. They're outside. They have their own little spot, and inside people aren't as comfortable with that.
For Spice Trade, they were planning on getting like patio cover.
Yeah, for Spice Trade, we were going to get like some tenting and stuff so that we can maximize our outdoor
Heaters.
space. For J Street, part of my motivation for pivoting prior to all this was to become a little bit more recession proof, because during a recession, we are definitely in that discretionary spending category. So I knew prior to COVID that a recession is coming. COVID just like, who knew when? And now with COVID, it's like, it's now. So we're kind of lining ourselves up to be a little bit more recession proof through some more kind of personal experiences, in-home experiences where people don't have to leave their homes. We're fortunate that we still have our commissary, so we can do lots of food prep without even entering someone's home, but kind of bringing the restaurant and the fine dining experience to the customer. So that will help with there being less opportunities for the food truck this winter, but also kind of try to insulate ourselves from a recession as well.
That's interesting. You continue to pivot, right? Pivot some more. And it's great that everyone is sort of thinking outside of the box and sort of moving to unconventional means to continue to make money and stay afloat. So that's great to hear. I know you can't really divulge too much, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to keep tabs on you guys to see what you guys have coming up. Now, Amy and Jason, you guys are very optimistic, right? Life gave you lemons, and you opened up a restaurant in the middle of a pandemic, and you couldn't have done it without a pandemic. It sounds like, because you're so busy with the food truck. So, what about what would you say to those who are feeling like they just can't go forward, or they're just having a hard time with their business really failing due to everything that's happening in the world?
The situation is similar to like a lot of these people that we've watched open food trucks that are like, I'm just going to do it on my days off. And to be honest, like Jason and I talked about, let's just do it on like the days he has off from the hotel. We'll take the food truck out. But the best thing we did was just give it everything that we had. And I mean, if you're throwing money at it, like, you want it to succeed. And so I think it's anytime you start a business, regardless of what's happening in the world, you've got to give it everything you have. You have to be ready to pivot. You have to
be willing to change.
Can't be so locked into your idea, like, this is the way it's going to happen, and if it doesn't happen this way, it's just not going to work. You've got to be willing to like work with it and
evolve,
massage it until it works, but giving it everything you have and making it your priority, I think, is just really key. Almost every truck I think one truck out of like 20 that I've seen kind of try to half-ass it and do it part-time, 1 out of 20 succeeded. And that's only because there were like 4 of them to do it. So they, between the 4 of them, they had a full-time person to do it. But I think just going into it without any hesitation is probably the best advice that I could give.
Yeah, I mean, it's also circumstance. I mean, we're fortunate with, a couple things of the way it worked out, because there's, we're not just miracle workers, because, if we had, let's say, the 50-person rule for inside, that's for no matter how much square footage you have. So the people that are really screwed, let's say you had a big restaurant and you had no parking lot or no patio space that you could expand to. Let's say you could fit 500 in your place before, it doesn't matter. You could only fit 50. So some people can't, and you can't operate with that small amount of table turning. So there are some people that just cannot operate like that. So, some of it is we're just fortunate with the cards that we were dealt, so to speak.
I feel like though everything's coming together from the things we've heard from other people too, right? Like Shiv talked about, like, put yourself all into one thing and really be good at that one thing in one of our episodes. And we've heard it over and over again about being committed to a task and taking charge with it. And so I think it's a scary thing, and I commend you both in doing it. And again, not just because you're family, but
You're not my family, and I commend you.
Oh, thank you.
It's daunting. It's a lot. You're having to deal with family. You have a child, and that's a full-time job in itself, right? And then having 2 food trucks and having another restaurant. It's just things that kind of pile on top of each other, because now you're not dealing with just opening up a restaurant. You're dealing with 3 businesses that are not making money, or potentially may not be for quite some time. So it's kudos to you guys. We commend you again. I've learned a lot.
Well, again, thank you guys so much. I hope this has inspired some viewers. Like, don't get down on your luck. Like, you just got to stick with it. Be persistent. Be dedicated. Be motivated, and and feel those karma quotients out there too, because I think that's really how some good things came to you guys.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Jason and Amy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
guys.
Yeah.
I am a secret foodie or a food snob. I'm not sure what to call myself, but yeah, I love food, so that definitely it really piqued my interest. So, and we do try to bring just a variety of people on the show, because there's all types of industries and challenges and whatnot. So we hope everyone enjoyed it. And now that I'm hungry, what about cookie time?
Fortune cookie time! Woo! All right. Should we go at the same time and open?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. I went flying. Hold on. Here's how when it came out flying in the air.
Mine's pretty good. Mine
All
are
right.
in 2 pieces too. So
All right, let's hear
all
it.
right, what's yours?
Oh, okay. I don't even know what it is. Let's see. It says, ooh, there will be someone sharing your warmth.
Ooh,
Probably my
interesting.
dogs.
Well, that's okay. Mine is any day above ground is a good day. So underground, probably not a very good day. 6 feet under, definitely not a good day.
Hey, but that is a good TV show we didn't talk about on the binge-worthy one.
6 feet under?
Have you never seen that?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh, it's an oldie but a goodie. All right. Cheers. So,
Bye, everyone.
yeah, bye everyone. We'll see you all for episode 9 soon. Stay tuned.